Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting lesson in Christian history made easy. Before I start, I just want to say Debbie and I finally got to go out to eat at a restaurant this week, and frankly, it was strange, but it was nice, and it kind of felt like maybe things are getting back to normal. I don't think things are ever going to be completely back to the way they were. I've really gotten to where I like working from home. I don't think I have no desire to go back into the office. So I think the world's going to be a different place when we finally all get back together again. But I am looking forward to the interaction. I just definitely would like to spend more time with people. So on to the lesson. Hey, last week we talked a lot about the 30 Years' War, and it's just a war among many wars, but it's really important because it really establishes whether Protestantism is going to make it in Europe or not. The Protestants, for most of the 30 years, were losing that war, and it looked very much like the Catholic countries were going to assert the domination of Catholicism throughout Europe. I think the Scandinavian countries would have remained Lutheran, but it looked really tough for the countries that became Germany. And the only reason the Protestants wound up winning, I guess if you could call it winning, getting to choose their faith path, is because a Catholic country, France, actually changed sides and went over to the Protestant side just to kind of keep the other Catholic nations at bay. So it's important to know that it really is the chance for Europeans to choose their faith. Another thing we talked about was the Westminster Assembly. The Westminster Assembly is important because during all this 30 Years' War, Great Britain is essentially in a civil war. They don't participate in the 30 Years' War because they've got too many problems in their own house. And it's really important. The Westminster Assembly is really important because it establishes the concept of Presbyterianism as a ruling church body, that you could have an assembly of elders rule your church rather than the king. It's really important. The Church of England goes back to the Episcopalian system eventually, but the Church of Scotland stays with the Presbyterian system, and really all the churches in America practice something similar to the Presbyterian system. Even Methodism, though it's so similar to the Church of England, they're very responsive to their body of elders, and kind of take a lot from Presbyterianism. Today there's a lot of interesting things we're going to talk about. We're talking about getting into America now. Our history is part of Christian history. First thing I wanted to talk about is the Pilgrims. Obviously, that's a very beginning story for America. The Pilgrims started out as separatists in the Church of England. Couldn't stay in England because it's against the law to be a separatist. And in fact, one of the most important laws that was established in the late 16th century was that if you didn't attend the Church of England, if you did not attend church on Sunday, you were fined 1 shilling per Sunday. And I was thinking maybe we ought to bring this up to our church council, that anyone who doesn't show up in church on Sunday should be fined 1 shilling. I don't know where we're going to find all the shillings, but anyway, it's something to think about. They moved to Amsterdam and didn't quite fit in there, and finally in 1620 they moved to North America and established a colony in Plymouth Bay. They called the Plymouth Colony, and the rest, as they say, is history. Another concept to think about for this week is Deism. Deism rejects revelation as a source of religious knowledge. Deism accepts that there is a God, that there is a creator God, that everything was created by God, but it promotes the notion that once God was finished with creation, he more or less was finished with us. It's a very Enlightenment kind of concept where God started everything in motion, and now it's up to us to continue. It's up to us to build God's kingdom here. And so it's a very important kind of a philosophy it's a big change in religious philosophy for the time. And then that leads us to the Enlightenment, the Age of Reason. Um, the Age of Reason, the Age of Enlightenment was extremely anti-monarchy, anti-centralized church. It was very the independent human being kind of thinking. It was the Enlightenment is pretty much the source of just a kind of an age of revolution as well. Not only in our country, but in France and many of the other countries of Europe at the time. The monarchies were overthrown, and the age of just the common man kind of was born. This is also, the Enlightenment has also gave birth to the concept of what's called liberalism. You guys are familiar with liberalism, and maybe some of you are liberals, but there's really no concept of being a political liberal until the Age of Enlightenment. It's you're either for the government or against it, but there's no real concept of liberalism. Also, this is the Age of Reason, the Age of Logic. In fact, reason and logic were made paramount. That's, again, that goes back to Deism, that it's God's done it, but now it's up to us to figure things out from there. In the Age of Enlightenment, you were asked to trust your senses. You were asked to follow the scientific method, to document and prove things, according to what's science. And and all of this makes sense, and it's all quite reasonable, it's all logical. I'm using Enlightenment words to explain it, but like anything, it's possible to go too far with it. And I think there's probably instances where deism, logic, scientific method maybe goes too far. It pushes a boundary beyond what we actually need. I'll let you decide that for yourself. One of the most foremost authorities in the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Reason, was a man named Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton was certainly the Renaissance man. He was a mathematician, a physicist, an astronomer, an author, and a theologian. A lot of good theology books by Sir Isaac Newton. He formulated calculus. He gave us the laws of motion. He explained gravity, and I did some research on this for the class. I could not actually ascertain with absolute certainty in this Age of Reason whether an apple fell on his head and that's what gave him all the laws of gravity or not. So that I'm going to leave up to you to make your own decision on. He explained planetary motion. He explained why the tides work. He explained cometary trajectories. And he explained equinoxes. All of this, instead of the universe, the solar system, the earth itself, instead of moving in perfect circles, it moves in what's called a heliocentric circle. It's more of an oval than a circle, and that explains a little bit better why there are tides, why there are seasons, why the moon gets closer and further from us. He built the first practical reflecting telescope. If you're not into telescopes, I'll explain that. Up until this point, it was just various orders of magnitude of magnifying glasses, and maybe just a series of magnifying glasses. But with a reflecting telescope, you can take in light, bounce it off, multiply it by 10, bounce it off again, multiply it by 10 again, and bounce it off these mirrors inside your telescope until this image you get in your viewfinder is so much bigger than you could ever make out of a magnifying glass. So having a reflecting telescope was a huge leap forward for us astronomers. He also calculated the speed of sound. On the downside of all his scientific endeavors is he was also an alchemist. He spent a lot of time, and I would say wasted a lot of time, trying to convert lead into gold. It never happened for him. Too bad. Would have been cool if he had done it. And as a theologian, he was mostly mainstream, but he had some peculiarities that of course, his greatness, the greatness of his mind, helped overcome that, and so that people would still accept him. But he did not believe in ordainment. the Church of England is a very Episcopalian system, and the hierarchy is very much predicated on being ordained as a pastor and elder and on up to the bishop. As opposed to being a bishop, he didn't believe in all that. He believed more in the Baptist model that if you're called by God, then you spread the word of God. That's what you do. That's how it works. And another thing that's really unsettling to me is that he did not believe in the Trinity. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on that, but just suffice to say that's kind of jarring. And then the last person I want to talk about today is Roger Williams. And not only am I going to talk a little bit about him today, we're going to continue the discussion on Roger Williams next week. Roger Williams was a Puritan. He came to America as a separatist because he just didn't feel like he could clean up the Church of England enough to suit his need for it to be more biblically based. And he came to the Massachusetts Bay Colony thinking that he'd be able to create a more pure religious community. But for Roger Williams, the Plymouth Bay Colony became too pure. And he was expelled for new and dangerous ideas. These new and dangerous ideas were concepts like religious freedom and separation of church and state. He proposed that we be fair to the Native Americans, that we not exterminate them, but become, a team with them, work with them. Most of the Plymouth Bay colonists did not agree with that philosophy, and he was very strongly anti-slavery. Let's face it, the first couple hundred years of America were almost dependent on slavery as an institution. And so Roger Williams was kind of an outlier. And anyway, they kicked him out of Plymouth Bay for all these beliefs. And he went on to establish another colony in Rhode Island, kind of a side shoot, but he got some financing from Cecil Rhodes, and so they named it Rhode Island. Anyway, in 1638, in Providence, Rhode Island, he establishes the First Baptist Church there, the First Baptist Church of Providence. And so you've probably been seeing churches your whole life called the First Baptist Church, and it's kind of the tradition was started in 1638 there, the First Baptist Church of Rhode Island. Now I want to close with something just a beautiful, beautiful song that I want to share with you guys. You can certainly read it at home, and I encourage you to do so. But it's so beautiful, and it just makes me think of y'all. And this is what I want to do as our closing prayer. I will sing of your love and justice. To you, O Lord, I will sing praise. I will be careful to lead a blameless life. When will you come to me? I will walk in my house with blameless heart. I will set before my eyes no vile thing. The deeds of faithless men I hate. They will not cling to me. Men of perverse heart shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with evil. Whoever slanders his neighbor in secret, him will I put to silence. Whoever has haughty eyes and a proud heart, him will I not endure. My eyes will be on the faithful in the land, that they may dwell with me. He whose walk is blameless will minister to me. No one who practices deceit will dwell in my house. No one who speaks falsely will stand in my presence. Every morning I will put to silence all the wicked in the land. I will cut off every evildoer from the city of the Lord. All right. My eyes will be on the faithful in the land, that they may dwell with me. He whose walk is blameless will minister to me. I'm talking to you. Love you guys, miss you, and hope to see you soon. Amen.